Hey everyone, I'm Dan and I'm building this expedition truck. If you're new to this channel, I bought this truck about 4 years ago and I've been turning it into my home. It's two-story, it's got a slide-out room, a foldable rear deck, a pop-top roof and a deck over the top of the cab. So in this video we're going to be working on the slide-out room. I need to work out how I'm going to seal the slide-out room when it's extended and when it's retracted. I'm not sure how we're going to do that yet, but we're going to work it out together. So thank you very much for watching and let's get into it. Just like the main body of the truck, the slide-out room has a pop-top roof, which is sitting on the ground over here. And that's connected to the base of the slide-out room with gas struts. So there's a constant pressure pushing up on the roof of the slide-out room. And as the roof of the main body lifts, it allows the slide-out room to lift up simultaneously. So we need to seal this in two stages. I need to seal the base of the slide-out room and then we need to seal the roof. So I'm going to work on the base first. One of the problems I have with the base is that it's got two different widths. So the bottom of the base, you might be able to see around here, the bottom of the base is a little bit wider and that lines up with the outside of the roof. So as the roof comes down and closes, the slide-out room is in alignment. The external edge of the slide-out room is in alignment. But when the roof is lifted on the slide-out room, that means that we have this little edge here, this little shelf. And when water hits that, it's just going to run straight along and go straight back inside. So that's something that we need to fix. It's very hard to visualize this by talking about it, so I'm going to draw a picture and hopefully that'll be a bit clearer. Here's a rough elevation of the side of the slide-out room. So this is the opening in the main body of the truck where the slide-out room comes out, and this is the edge, the side wall of the slide-out, and this is the little lip we're talking about. So the wall comes up, returns in, and then it goes up a bit higher. And I'm worried that when water hits the side of this, it's going to run down and it's going to get stuck on this edge and it's just going to run along here and go straight inside. So what I need to do is at the back here, just as it comes out beyond the wall of the main body of the truck, I need to extend this wall all the way up, like that. So, and then a rubber flap will come from the main body of the truck and it will contact the edge of the slide-out room. And as water runs down and hits this, it'll be able to run along here, but it'll only get as far as this wall that runs up. And it'll hit that and then it'll flow down here. So we need to add a bit more material to the back of the slide-out room, to both sides. So we're going to go and do that now. We've added some more framing to the slide-out room. So we've added this piece at the back here. We've framed that out and then we've dropped this rail down a little bit. So now this extra piece of framing, this is going to poke out, it's going to protrude out just past the lower seal on the main body. So the seal on the body will sit about here and there'll be a continuous piece of rubber coming out and contacting the body of the slide-out room. So when water hits the side here, it'll run down and it'll hit this edge. It'll run down the edge. There'll be a tapered flashing along here where I've dropped it lower. It'll run down off the edge of the slide-out room and not come inside. Now, if you come over this side, you'll see that this framing sticks up a little bit higher on the back of the slide-out room. And this is a perfect example of when you build something yourself without any plans, just from what's in your mind. There's these little design flaws that start to snowball and then eventually you have to deal with it. This is what's happening now. So because the bed takes up the front half of the pop-top roof, the back half of the pop-top roof has 350 millimeters extra headroom. And because of that, I could lift the windows a little bit higher. And that meant that the lowest point of the roof at the back was 350 mil higher than the front. So when I made the slide-out room goes from the low point at the roof to the the low point of the bottom of the roof to the high point of the bottom of the roof. So basically, because I made the slide out room lower frame and pop top roof to suit the lower point of the roof, when it lifts up at the back on the higher side, basically there is a little gap. It's really hard to explain, and I'm sure most of you are lost, and I'm a little lost. But basically there's a gap at the back, and I had to build this frame up a little bit higher to fill that gap, and I think it's going to work, and when it's all together, I don't think you'll really notice it. Of course, now that we've modified the lower frame, we're going to have to modify the upper frame. That is the case with pretty much everything on this build, as most of you will be aware. So I need to take about 20 mil off the back of it, so I'm not going to cut it from the very back. I'm going to cut a piece out of it about there and then rejoin it. That will be the quickest way to do it. I don't want to get too excited, but that could be the last time I have to modify any framework on this build. Fingers crossed. So the bearings that I'm using on the slide out room are the same bearings that I've used on the main body of the truck, although they're a smaller version. So this is it. It's a THK slide pack. Basically, we're just going to bolt the rail to the lower half of the slide out room at the back and the carriage to the pop top roof, and then at the front we'll bolt the carriage to the lower half and the rail to the roof. And that will mean that when the slide out room is closed and it's retracted and there's pressure on the front where it contacts the seal, it won't allow the back corner of the slide out room to lift up because the carriages will be on an angle. So there'll be one at the top and there'll be one at the bottom, and that will help with the support because it'll be, supported on an angle. If that makes any sense. It is very hard to explain this stuff sometimes, so I'm going to go and bolt it on now. When I install these bearing guides, I try to install them in situ. I'm not sure if that's the best way to do it, but I find it's easier to get the alignment right if you do it that way rather than trying to do it by measurement and then line them up, because it only needs to be 0.5 millimeter out and it can ruin the whole alignment. So I put it all together just loosely. I put one bolt in the bearing and then put the frame on it, and I've just packed it up a little bit. Then I get the track running parallel with the frame and put one bolt in the top, and then I lift it up and put a bolt in the bottom, and that should allow the bearings to find their own alignment. The bearings are bolted on and I've fitted the gas struts. I just put them in to make sure it was all square and that everything's sitting right. So the gas struts, I got them made by a place in Brisbane. They're custom made. They've got a 650mm stroke, the same stroke as the main roof. And I've just cut some pieces of angle to bolt them onto the frame to support them. So now that I know that it's all sitting square and it's sitting how I want, I'm going to take the gas struts out and we'll put the room in, and then we'll test it out. We've got the slide out in and we've got the gas struts installed. Now I'll install our little support angle brackets and we'll run it out. We'll see how our brackets work from last week, and we'll have a look at the ceiling mods that we've made. It's better. Sorry if it's a bit hard to hear right now. It's just started raining and I'm having issues with my microphone. But let's have a look at the ceiling faces and I'll see if I can explain how this is going to work. So this is the framing that we have just installed. And previously this piece ran all the way along inside the truck. Water would have hit this wall, run down to here, and then it would have just ran straight in. Now, water will run down to here and I'll have a tapered flashing there, and it will be able to run off, and any water that runs back along will hit this and it'll run down here. And the internal seal in there's a piece of angle in here that will have a strip of rubber on it that will contact the external cladding of the slide out room directly, like that, and it'll run all the way up from the very bottom all the way up to the top. And then the roof of the slide out room is basically the same. There's this piece that will run all the way up to the top, and there'll be a piece of rubber in there that'll be a continuous point of contact running all the way up the roof of the slide out room. So any water that hits the roof will run along, hopefully hit this piece of rubber, and run down and fall down here. And we might even put a piece of angle on the inside on the slide out room just to support that piece of rubber from the back. Looking from inside here, I've noticed a few things that need to be addressed. The slide out room itself is quite wobbly at the back because it doesn't have a lot of support, but once I put the framing in for the seats that'll be in there, that will support the lower part a lot better. But the roof itself is also quite wobbly because there's not much cross support here, because this roof has to go down and seat over the top of the lower section. You can't really have any supports in here. So what I think I'll do is just square it up as best I can, and then I'll put some latches on here. One latch on this side and one latch on this side. So when it's extended, you have to just lock it into place, and it'll make it a lot more solid, because at the moment you can see it is quite wobbly, but a couple of latches should fix that. Also, the roof of this slide out room, this is for those that don't know, the whole roof opens up. There's two pieces, one piece that slides forward and one piece that slides back, so this whole slide out room area can be an open air room. So that is all we're going to do for this week. Next week I will start looking at doing the finishing touches before we put the cladding on, like, you know, securing this, putting the sliding roof on, just all the little finishing touches, and then we'll start cladding it. So thank you all so much for watching. If you know anyone that you think would be interested in this build, please share it with them, and see you soon.